We'll do a review in the Kutis Sichas in Chelek Vav. This is volume 26. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas Beshalach. In this Sicha, the Rebbe will explain some fundamental ideas about Emunah, about believing in Hashem, and about Bitochen, about trusting Hashem, and the difference when we apply Emunah and then when we apply Bitochen. The Rebbe will also discuss there are two levels in Bitochen, in trusting Hashem, and as the Rebbe will explain. But the Sikha starts off by the Rebbe pointing out to a difference between the first edition of the Shulchan Aruch and in the second edition of Shulchan Aruch, which we have only several simonim of the Alter Rebbe, in which the Alter Rebbe gives the reason why we do the Parshas Hamon. We talk about the manna in our parsha that the Eibishter provided for Yidden, the food in the desert was the man. So the portion that discusses about the man is used for a person in the morning before the davening to read that portion, so that he realizes that the sustenance and the success and everything that he needs comes from Hashem. As the Rebbe will speak and quote from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, first in the first edition and then in the later edition, and the differences between them. Let's look inside and we'll go step by step. Aleph, as state in Tur, it's written in the Tur, as toiv loymar di parshas Hamon jeden tog, that it's good to say the portion of the Torah which is the Mon in our parsha every day. Und der Tam, in practice we don't say it in the Chabad tradition, but the Shulchan Aruch brings this down. Und der Tam der Reif, what's the reason for saying the portion of the Mon every day? Steht in Beis Yosef, it's written, it brought down in the Beis Yosef, Kedei sheyamin shekol mezenoso boin loy b'hashgacha, in order for a person to believe that all foods come to him with divine providence. Whatever the person is going to have, or whatever he has, is from Hashem, because the man we see that Hashem dictated that, and that was what fed them in the desert. So a person should believe that all of his sustenance, his food, comes by supervision from Hashem. The Alter Rebbe b'Shulchan Aruch shaloi in Madura Kamo, the Alter Rebbe in his Shulchan Aruch, in the first version, is matig dem din von Tur mit dem Tam from Beis Yosef. He quotes the law of the Tur together with the reason of the Beis Yosef. Und is moisiv dem biur von Levush, and he also adds the explanation of the Levush. Levush writes, Shekein hoya b'mon, because this was by the mon sheishgiach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem supervised loses lekol echo, to give to each one oimer lagul goylus, the amount of an oimer for each skull. Each person got exactly an oimer. Lechol nefoshes beisei, for all members of his home. So as many people as there was in the home, that is as much oimer as you get for each one oimer lagul goylus. Like the pasuk says, and they measured with the oimer to see how much they have. And the one who brought more, it did not come to more, and the one who brought less was not lacking. Everybody got exactly the month. So the Levush explains that what does it mean to trust Hashem, that Hashem will provide for you all the foods like He did over there by the mon, because by the mon you see that the Eibishter made sure that everybody got exactly the same amount. It didn't matter how much you collected. If you collected more, you didn't get more, and if you collected less, you didn't get less. You got the oimer for each kolgoilos. That's what the Alter Rebbe adds from the Levush. But then when you look over, when you compare this to the second edition, but in the second version of the Shulchan Aruch, is a Mishana. He changes. Und anstatt bringing them Tam HaBeis Yosef HaLavush in place, instead of bringing the reasoning of the Beis Yosef Lavush for reading the portion of the Mon, Zokter, Uparshas Hamon, the portion of the Mon is Livtoyach B'Hashem Noisin Lechem Devar Yom B'Yom. The reason why we do the portion of the Mon is so that we can trust, put our trust in Hashem, who provides, who gives the food day by day. Now, this means there's two changes in this statement versus the first version. Das heißt, Ashinui in zwei Protim is a change in two details. In the first one, he writes to believe, and here he writes to trust. First one, it says lahamin. Here it says livtoyach, aleph. Anstatt loshen ha-Beis Yosef sheyamin. Instead of the language of the Beis Yosef that he should believe, zog der Alter Rebbe. That Alter Rebbe says instead, he says livtoyach, to trust. Based, and another change, the Alter Rebbe in the first brings down that it was an Eimer legal goylus from the Levush, and over here, brengt nicht base, brengt nicht dem Inyan in Mon, as it is given b'ashgocha protis. He doesn't bring down that the Mon was this specific individual supervision, that each one got their measure, that was an individualized part. Brengt nicht dem Inyan in Mon, he doesn't bring the idea in the Mon as is given b'ashgocha protis, that it was with individual supervision, specific, detailed supervision. Omer legal goylus lechol nafshes beise, that there was exactly an omer per person for each members of the household. Nor, but what he does say is, as das was the Eberster of the Mon gegeben noch anan. He says that Eberster continuously gave the Mon. It was a continuous phenomenon. So the Hashem gives continuously, gave then every day. That should call out and bring about by a person the trust that the Eibishter is noisin lechem dvar yom b'yom, that the Eibishter gives the bread every day what you need, so it's going to be continuous. So there's two changes in the second edition than the first edition. In the first one, it says to believe from the Beis Yosef, and in the second one, it says to trust, livtoyach. In the first one, it talks about the specific supervision that everybody got their amount. In the second, in the Madura Tinyono, it talks about that it was a continuous, and so that we can trust Hashem to give us every day. And the Rebbe says that these two differences, at a simple level, are connected between the pashtus. These two changes hinge one another, because the inyan in Mon was ishgiach HaKadosh Baruch Hu losis l'kol echad eimer l'gulgoylos l'chol nafshis beisim. This idea that Hashem supervised to give each one eimer for each person, for all the family members, and v'loihedif hamar b'vamamit loihechsir, and the one who took more didn't get more, and the one who got less didn't get less, is mechazik. What that does, the emunah funa'id. that strengthens the person's belief. Azayne mezoines, that his food, kumen nit from koichi va'otzim yodi. They don't come from, quoting the verse, my power, the strength of my hand. In other words, I am the one that is successful, takes credit for the success. Nor it comes the belief, they come to the person through supervision. Hashem supervises and provides it for him. As we saw vividly by the mon, as the peulas fun Adam haben nit mishane given. Over there, the acts of the person didn't change a thing. In them kamus hamon, in the quantity of the money, was der Eberster hat bestimmt und gegeben l'chol echad, that Hashem designated and give to each one. So you see that it's Hashem, it comes from Hashem. So therefore, this helps a person in his amunah, believing that it's not comes that he is the one that is doing it, but Hashem is providing it for him. You see by the man, his doing, individuals doing, didn't help anything. It was Hashem that provided. But that inyan from betochen aber, when you say you trust, is nit nor as men gläubt as men zenoisav shalodom kumen von Eberstein. That is it's not just, not only that you believe that the food of the human being comes from Hashem, from the one above. Nor, but betochen means you trust as men farlos sich von Eberstein, that you are relying on Hashem. It's not you believe that Hashem does, it has the power, and He's the one that provides it, but here you trust Hashem. As vet im sicher zustellen, that for sure God will provide for you your food. Und der Inyan habitochen lernt ben up from them, and from where do we learn the level of trust? Was that Eibishter hat dem Mann gegeben dvariem b'yoymei. To trust Hashem, we learn the fact that Hashem gave it every day and day. Be'ofen, timidi, it was consistently, it was continuous. Azoi, as men hat sich in ganzen verlost auf den Ebersten, in such a way that you totally relied on Hashem, on King Daigevachulu. You without any worries, because you knew that you are going to be provided by Hashem. Amunah means that you believe that Hashem could provide. B'tochen means that you trust Hashem will provide. It's not that Hashem is able to provide, but that He will provide. So that He will provide, you learn from the Mon, the Eibishter did provide every day. So yes, in the Madura Kamo, we believe that the Eibishter has, that it's not me, but it's the Eibishter, as we see that the person's actions had little to do with how much they collected. So we believe it comes from the Eibishter. From the Madura Tinyona, the Alter Rebbe says that we see that we can trust Hashem because it came every day. But why does the Alter Rebbe change from the first to the second, from Amunah to Bitochen? As his Ober Deirish Hasbara, it still requires explanation. My time, what's the reason? Was in Beis Yosef and Levush, that in the Beis Yosef and the Levush, and similarly in the first edition of the Shulchan Aruch von Alten Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch, bringt sich der Inyan von Kadesha Yamin Chubo. But there we bring the idea to believe in Hashem, that Hashem is the provider. Und Davki Madura Tinyore, specifically in the second edition, is the Alter Rebbe Mishane, over there he changes and Zogdem Tam, and he gives the reason, Liv Toyach B'Hashem Noisin Lechem Dvar Yem B'Yem, to trust in Hashem, who gives food every day and day that we need. So that is the level of trust. Why this change from Madura Kam Madura Basra? As the Rebbe will explain in the end of the Sikha, that the Madura Basra was written on a higher level, on level of Kabbalah, in which a person has to reach the higher level of B'tochen, as the Rebbe will explain later on. But basically, we have here a difference between Amuna and Betochen. Amuna is believing, and Betochen is trusting. In the first Shulchan Aruch, in the first edition, the Alter Rebbe brings the Levush and the Beis Yosef about believing from the Tur. And in the second edition, he changes it to trusting, and he brings from the fact that the Eibishter gave the mon every single day. Why this difference? That's what the Rebbe wants to know, and the Rebbe will explain later on. In Ois Beis, the Rebbe is going to say there might actually be a halachic difference between the way the Alter Rebbe says in the first edition versus the second edition, because believing in Hashem is something which we do all the time. It's not only when we are necessary, we believe that Hashem provides for us. But usually we need to trust Hashem. We say that when a person feels the urgency or he feels that he's in a situation where he wants to make sure that what he's going to be doing now, he's trusting Hashem that he'll be successful in what he's doing that. And whether that can be said on Shabbos or not, there might be a difference between whether one is permitted to say the Parshas Amon or should say the Parshas Amon. If it just expresses a belief in Hashem, so you believe in Hashem all the time, that Hashem is the provider. But if it's trusting Hashem, it's sort of like asking for your needs. On Shabbos, we don't ask for our needs. Let's look inside, base. It seems like that there's also a difference halachically zwischen the zwei time in between these two reasons. And Rebbe wants to do so you can see that it's not just a change from the first edition to the second edition, what the reason is, or whether we're talking about Amun and Betochen, but it may be a practical difference in halacha between the first and the second edition, whether one should say the Parshas Amon on Shabbos. Einer von den Chilukim zwischen Amun und Betochen is one of the differences between believing and trusting is Amunah is an inyan tamide. Belief is a constant matter. Sie ist die Abgelegtheit und Gewissheit, that is the acceptance and the certainty by Mamin, by the one who believes. One who believes it's something which makes sense to him and he's sure about it. As die Sache ist azoi, that this matter is so. Wie glaubt, as he believes that this is the case. And therefore is as though by him standing, then it's always by him. That's part of his belief system, that he believes this all the time. Also, when that belief is not connect, it does not matter to action. He's not doing anything that he has to believe. That's something which is stored in his self. He believes. Ledugma. Let's say, for example, Benidin Dedan, in our case, the Amunah to believe as kol mizenoisav boin loy bashgacha. That we believe that all our food comes by supervision, comes from Hashem. Is doch nit masim zu zogun. So then it wouldn't fit to say, when do I believe that Hashem gives me the food? As gloib terin, when does he believe in this? Nor when he is occupied in his livelihood, he believes that, oh, Hashem gives it to me. Nor the amuna is tomid benafshe, but rather that belief is always in your soul. That's something. It's a belief that you believe. You don't only believe when you're working for your livelihood. That's a belief that you have all the time. Mashenkim betochen, as opposed to trust, is sicherheit, that certainty, verlosen and reliance. Verlosen sich dem Eibishter beparnose, to rely on Hashem, the one above, for your sustenance, is a hergish usvert nisoirer beim odom beis hatzoirach. That's a feeling that is aroused by the person when he needs it, at the time that he needs it. Shaz der Odom is b'melacha. Zufardina parnososei, when a person occupies himself in his job to earn his living, when he's working for his living, then it applies the trusting. He trusts Hashem, he trusts God. He trusts that God, your God, quoting the verse, God, your God will bless you in everything that you do, which means that Eibishter wird sicher benchen sein Asiya. You trust that Hashem will for sure bless your doing, your asik, your occupation, your business, in an oifen, in such a way as es wird ihm bringen parnose, that'll bring you livelihood. So that means to trust at the time you're trusting that what you're doing is going to be successful. Trust is applicable when you're doing something and you're trusting Hashem, or in the other side, when you're in a trouble. Other than Einer gefinzich Rahman al-Islam in an Eistzara, when a person finds himself, God forbid, in a time of a problem, when he says no solution, there's no way out naturally. How is he going to be saved from this? So if a person has trust in Hashem, then you don't fall into hopelessness. Where is my help going to come? I'm lost. But he is certain. He trusts Hashem as their Eibishter, welcher is Bal Habayis of Teva. That Hashem, who is in charge, he owns, he's above nature. He's the owner of nature. He has in his hands, he has the ability to change nature. That will certainly help. He says, as Ezri mim Hashem Shemayim va'oretz. My help comes from Hashem who makes the heaven and the earth, which is the continuation of the verse. Instead of Ma'ayin Yove Ezri, where does it come from? Ezri mim Hashem Shemayim va'oretz. That is someone who has betochen. So basically, betochen is you don't despair in the case of a problem, and you are trusting when things go, that things will go good your way. As opposed to Amunah is abstract, is not when you're doing or in a problem. You believe that Hashem is the one that dictates everything and gives everything, and from him comes everything. And the Rebbe explains now how this actually is also, this is einer from the Biurim, in the Inyan from Midas HaBetochen. This is one of the explanation in the idea of the measure of trusting Hashem. This actually helps us understand how could we really trust Hashem? How do we know that we are deserving, that we are actually going to get things that we need? To trust Hashem, we're not saying there should be something spiritual out, but we want what we want, the physical, and we trust that we're going to get it. How do we know that? Was is nicht verstandig. Similar, it's not understood, but now we'll understand it. Betochen meint doch, what does trust mean? As a Yid is beteach, that a Yid trusts as der Eibishter wird ihm meitiv sein, that God will do good to him betoy vanir vanigla, in good that is visible and revealed after. Das heißt. So what does it mean? What is trusting Hashem is revealed and visible good that you trust in Hashem. Das heißt, that's in addition to the fact, as the Eibishter weiß, as das is good for a mention, that Hashem knows that that is good for the person. We're not trusting Hashem that Hashem will give us that what He knows is good for us. He says, as if der Mensch wird sehen, as es is good for him. But this is in a way we're trusting Hashem that I, the person who's trusting Hashem, will see that this is good for him. Not that Hashem knows that's really good for him. So how could you trust? The fact alone that the person, God forbid, is in a problem, that he needs Hashem's help, can doch sein. Why could it be? That possibly. Maybe because he didn't conduct himself properly. Und der Fall kommt Maybe that's why he deserves the punishment. So what's the basis? What's the foundation for his trust? He's trusting Hashem, that Hashem is definitely going to give me what I want, that I can see, even though maybe you're in the trouble, maybe because you did something wrong. Maybe that's what Hashem wants you to go through. So how could you really trust? And when we say trust, this is not just a play on words, we're trusting. We're talking about a complete trust and a true trust, which means, as by him is in them that by him there is even not a doubt. He becomes totally relaxed. He's not worried. He's calm because he trusts that things will be proper. But how do you know that? How could you trust? Maybe you don't deserve. Maybe you deserve to be punished. But he is sure as the Eibishter vetim zicher. I'm sure that Hashem will certainly, nit mine is not God, is not going to punish me. That also is a favor. Punishment doesn't mean, but he's trusting Hashem. It's not going to be a favor of a punishment favor. It's going to be a favor that he can see that it's a favor. Nor meitiv zayin b'toiv hanira v'anila davke, but he's going to be giving good for him and revealed and visible good specifically. How does he know that? So, what's the explanation? When you show your complete trust in Eberstein, in Hashem, the one above, and when you take it for granted, obvious, it's just you accept simply that Hashem is going to do good to you, and good that is visible and revealed, that you can see and is revealed. If you trust that way, although that's not fitting to the natural calculations and expectations, you have no basis for trusting Hashem that things will be good. There is no calculation. If you show Hashem and you put out that you trust, notwithstanding your situation, you trust in Hashem, is those gufa mamshich milamayla. That alone, that trust draws down from above. That Hashem will treat you measure for measure, which is the way Hashem treats people, measure for measure. But Torah is meidia paskund. Torah let us know and ruled that this is Hashem's measure. So, no, if you Hashem pays you back in the measure. That's what the Torah says. That this is Torah rules. That this is Hashem's measure, measure for measure. When Hashem is in meitiv and Hashem will give you good, invisible, and revealed because you trusted it, notwithstanding that it didn't make any sense. Without consideration, not looking into at all whether you really deserve it or not. He's not going to deserve it because you trusted Hashem and you did not say, oh, I'm going to go by the natural cheshbonos, maybe I'm punished. Then the Eibusher is not going to punish you. And you'll see the visible and goodness in a visible way. So this is the additional explanation. The trusting in Hashem is not only you believe it's going to be okay, but the Rebbe brings out that trust in Hashem actually brings about this, the blessing. It changes around that, notwithstanding the fact that there's no rationalization for your trust in Hashem, that trust will make it that you will actually get it in a visible and a revealed way. So now, in Ois Gimel, the Rebbe wants to bring out the difference in halacha between the first and the second opinions are brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, in the Madura Kama, Madura Tinyona, because Bitochen is sort of asking your requests, the question would be, can you say it on Shabbos or not? Gimel. Now let's move on. From the above, it's understood as the Inya from Mitzvah Habitochen, that the idea of the measure of trust, that means to arouse that measure actually to trust is verbunden mit bakoshas tzrochav. Talking about somebody who trusts Hashem. We're talking about to actually have trust. That means that you're asking your need and you're trusting that Hashem will give you your needs. And der Mensch ist vernommen mit bekommen die Sachen, in welcher nötigt sich. When the person is occupied with receiving the items that he needs them. Is beteach b'Hashem, then he trusts Hashem. As Baruch Hu, that he, blessed be he, will fulfill them. According to this, so if we're saying that the reason we say the person is that the person should be aroused, woken up to trust Hashem, there's room to say the Parshas Amon soll gesagt werden, that when you say this portion of the Mon, Norbi Aleph, Norbi Moisachel, only during the weekdays. Aber nicht b'yem Shabbos, but not on Shabbos, when es darf nicht sein, that in Yifim Pakoshas Trochav, on Shabbos we don't ask for our needs. Bal derech wie der Mon atzmoi, Mon itself, was is nicht darauf gekommen b'yem Shabbos, which did not descend on the day of Shabbos, there was no Mon. It was every day in the day, but it didn't come down on Shabbos. So maybe if that is Bakoshas Trochav, we shouldn't ask it on Shabbos. So we don't say the Parshas Amon on Shabbos. Also the weekdays, darf man es nicht sagen betchilas hatfilo. You shouldn't say it in the beginning of the davening when he starts davening, while derech and similar to we say that normally when we ask for our needs, we don't start off with asking our needs. First, we do the praise of Hashem. The first three brachas of the Amida is we praise Hashem, and then we ask for what we need. So, it says, the way it should be, a person should organize first the praise of Hashem, and then daven. So Bakoshas Trochav, that means davening to ask your needs comes afterwards. So you don't start with the Parshas Hamon. And like we find in some sidders, as mit gestellt Parshas Hamon la'acharei tefillah, that the portion of the Mon is placed after the davening. Und zusammen mit der Tefillah Bakosha Parnosa, and together with the prayer and a request for Parnosa. So that is a more appropriate place to put it if we're saying that the reason of the Parshas Hamon is to trust Hashem, which is connected to getting your needs. As opposed to according to the reason, so that you believe, then you can say it even on Shabbos. Also before the davening, in which we organize the praise of Hashem. It's okay to say it there because we're talking about believing Hashem. Believing in Hashem, you can say before the davening, say it on Shabbos. But the morning believing Hashem also as it relates to your sustenance, to your food, is that any of us that is something that we need all the time. So it'll come out that this would be a difference in halacha, where in the siddur we should say the Parshas Hamon, or where or when should we also say it on Shabbos or not. But the Rebbe says we need to look into this. This needs further explanation. Because also in this second edition, which it says the reason to trust Hashem, the Alter Rebbe writes very clearly, so it says every day, so it seems like it would include Shabbos. Because from the Loshen, is mashmados made b'chol yom. This language seems to say that you do it every day. Koilo also included Shabbos. So if, according to the idea that it's b'tochen, we don't say it on Shabbos, but that's not the way it seems from the Alter Rebbe's writing in the Madura Tinyona. Oich b'negeya dem prat, also as the detail from Mokim Amirosa, where you do it, in the weekdays when you say it, where do you place it? You don't do it before or after davening. Is fustimus haloshin Madura Tinyona, from the plain language closed. It doesn't say anything about it. In the simple language, it seems like Madur Mashmas that Einziger Chiluk, the only difference the Gabi Zaim Psaki Medura Kama to his ruling in the first edition is Benegeya Dem Tama Hamira. Only thing that changes the reason for saying it, but not that there's a change, a Hagbola, some limitation, when Kendos Zogen, when you can say it. So that would not seem to be, if we should say the Madura Basra, you should say it after davening. It doesn't seem like it changes that. Only changes the reason, Lamin and Livtoyach, and the Eberster is Chol Yom V'Yom, but not the placement, the word to say it. The Frad, as Eichin Madura Tinyon, is that Alter Rebbe Koilad Dem Din, also in the second edition, and the Alter Rebbe includes the law of saying the Parsamon mitamiris parshas hakedah together with saying the portion of the hakedah aseres adibris und euch mit parshas karbonis, and also the portion of karbonis. Welchem and zokah matfila. All this are said before the davening. So it doesn't seem like the Alter Rebbe changed it. So here we're saying it's betochen, but still the Alter Rebbe doesn't change the placing where you say it. It seems he puts it together with everything else that you say before the davening. He also seems to say b'chol yom. So bleib die Shaila hanal. So the question remains: Was is der tam hashini madura tinyon legabe madura kama babes Yosef? So what's the reason for the change in the second edition relative to the first edition, and what the Beis Yosef said over there, which is the mitzvah to lahamin, and here is the mitzvah of betochen. So the Rebbe will explain this by explaining at first the conduct that is brought down in the Zohar of Rabbi Yesi Sova, that he would always pray to Hashem, even when he had prepared his meal, he would pray to Hashem to give him his food when he had it over there. So what was the point when he has already the meal over there to pray to Hashem? And the Rebbe also ties this to the question about Yosef. What did Yosef do wrong for relying on the Sar HaMashkin to take him out of prison? And it seems like that Rashi brings down that he was punished to be there longer because he relied on the Sar HaMashkin. Isn't a person supposed to do, as brought down the Chayfes Alavavis, to do things in a natural way? And the Rebbe says that really it depends what the general conduct with that person is, that if the conduct is in a supernatural way generally, then you need to go on a higher level. And this was Rabbi Yisrael, Rebbe explaining on the higher level. Let's go inside step by step. Dalet. But das Verstehen behagdim abir in Anhogas Rabbi Yisrael will understand this by explaining the conduct of Rabbi Yisrael the elder. Was wird erzählt in Zohar von Heintige Sedra, that relates in the Zohar, today Sedra, behemshach zu minyan Amon, as a continuation of the idea of the Mon. So it says in the Zohar, as a fleck zugreiten sein Suda bechol yom, that he would prepare his meal every day. No nochdem verot frier gebeten, only after first he asked mezoini by Meibers, asking food from Hashem. First he would ask first for Hashem, and then he would prepare his meal. Zogendik, and he would say, Loinaskin suudoso atis yahiv bibe malko. I'm not going to prepare my meal until it will be given from the house of the king. Wird nicht zugereiten sein, Suda. He will not prepare his meal. Bis das wird ihm gegeben werden von dem Ebersten, until that will be given to him from Hashem. So this needs to be explained. Bald as der Eichel von welchen hat zugegräht, sei Suda, since the food from which he prepared his meal is schon gewesen Birshusay, it was already, the food was there, he had it. That's what he was preparing from. You have to go buy it or get it. Let's get it from somewhere. It was already in his property and he owned it. The only thing that was lacking, he had to prepare it for the meal. He had the food for that day. Was is der Pirush? What is the meaning? As bed beim Ebersten, as soll ihm geben the Meichel, that he asked Hashem to give him the food. So what does it mean that asking from Hashem to give the food when he already has the food? So the Rebbe wants to explain now, them by first explaining why Yosef was punished for asking the Saramashkin to remember him, to take him out of the dungeon where he was placed. So as you do the beer from Bechai, it's known, the explanation of the Bechai of Maimer Chazal on the saying of our sages. As Yosef is nenish geworden, that Yosef was punished, that Farvas had gebet Maim Saramashkin, since he asked the butler, he said, Vizkartani el Pari, remember me by Pari. So it says, As Chaz v'sholem she'yitla Yosef hatzadik b'tchoyne b'saramashkin. God forbid that he should hang his hopes, that Yosef should hinge his trust in the butler, the Saramashkin. Rak b'Hashem levade, only in Hashem alone. So we can't say that, says the Bechai, that Yosef trusted him. So what he had in mind, Hashem Yisborach Hizmei Lov Saramashkin, that that's why Hashem orchestrated it so that he prepared for him that the butler should be there, so a miracle will happen through him. So that wasn't wrong. So why was he punished for this? Explains the Bechai. Is as lefisha bikesh siba b'sar hamashkin, because he looked for a reason in the Saramashkin. He was looking for the Sar Hamashkin as a reason, as a place that Hashem should save him. He, tzaddikim like him, shouldn't look for reasoning for Hashem. Tzaddikim in the caliber of Yosef shouldn't look a cause that the Saramashkin will be the cause to bring him salvation. Not a Yosef Tzaddik. That's why he was punished. He should have just relied, trusted just Hashem alone. Shuhu Bal Hasibis Kulam. He is causes. He's the master that causes everything. Shuyu Yasmin Elov Hasiba. He is going to prepare for him the cause. So he doesn't have to ask it. He asks the Saramashkin to be the reason. Sure, he did it because he said the Eibishter sent him there, but it's not fitting for a tzaddik like Yosef to seek and say that somebody else is going to be the reason for his freedom. He should ask just Hashem alone to free him. But the explanation needs the explanation. Shouldn't the person that Eibishter gave it to him, prepared it for him? What's wrong in doing it the natural way? Frekman of them. So the question is asked of us. It's explained in Chayvus Halavavas, Benegeya to Betochen, as it relates to trusting, as es izachiyuv lasig b'sibus. It's an obligation actually to be occupying himself in causes to bring about the right results that you need. Und bringt to them kamarayis, and it brings many proofs. Is Ravos Yosef nämlich geworden lefi shabikesh siba. So why was he punished, so he looked for a reason. Why? What's the problem? Umiz Mevayer, and it's explained as a Zainen Faran Tzvei Fanim Madreges in Betochen. There's actually two ways and two steps in Betochen. Sometimes Betochen is in a natural way, and then there is a natural Betochen. So you use reasons, causes in nature, but sometimes the Betochen is when somebody gets in ways that are beyond reason, then the Betochen also has a higher, you don't even have to get involved in natural causes. Aleph. So what are the two levels? Aleph. Shaz the anhogim il is in an oifin. When the conduct from above is in such a way as nimshachim advorim shoilchim kisidma shal pi hatava, that the matters continue going in the order, the way according to Teva. Beloshen HaChasidus, to use the language of Chasidus, Bilos mitzad memale kol almen, the way it's from the light that fills the world, is damus darf mezuchon asiba umachan hakeli in Teva. Then you need to look for a cause to change and to make a natural keli in nature. Because the flow from above comes through the garments of nature. So that's why you got to make a thing in Teva. That's when the conduct is in such a way that the things go by Teva. But base number two, b'shas mezet, as dan hogem el mailis in an oifim bosnim shochim advorim shelo yapi Teva. You see that the things from above get extended not according to nature. You see that things come from Sevukul Almim, from the light of the Shem that surrounds the world. Then there's demanded a higher level in the measure of trust. Just to rely totally of Hashem's conduct. And that could do nothing. You shouldn't do anything. But to trust Hashem. Hashem will certainly help in a way. He will cause it. He will cause it. You don't bring in any natural causes to affect it, to get the results. You just leave it to Hashem. And therefore, it explains by Yosef HaTzadik, which was continuously always tied in his service with the level, with the step which is higher than nature. He should have conducted himself, helped him by the Hecher Neifim Betochen. He should have hold himself to the higher level of Betochen. And then the Rebbe is going to explain now, even when you do use a vessel, there's also two steps in Betochen. Hey, the Chelek zwischen the zwei Fanim in Betochen, the two levels in Betochen, is Do'ich b'shas men macht ya keli, in when we make a keli, which will also explain the conduct of Rabbi Yossi Sobo, that he prays to Hashem for the food. Das is as further sich ba'ifuna aleph, the fact that in the first case, as the Odom was akili, that the person should make a vessel for Hashem's blessing, is as vile mitzadar anhoga milmailo, because the way, the conduct from above, when the matters come down by nature, so that means that nature and the ways of nature, they take up room. That's important. And therefore, therefore the person should search for a vessel and a cause through which he would be extended to him the blessing of Hashem. Searching for ways for that blessing of Hashem that will bring about that blessing. That's the first way of betochen. Ashenki, that was held by the Hechem in betochen, as opposed to the one who is at the higher level of trusting. Was darf niton shum dover ki im b'Hashem. He doesn't have to do nothing. No keli, no siba, no reason. All what he does is he trusts Hashem. Shum dover ki im b'Hashem. Doesn't do anything but trust Hashem. Habun di derke hateva ba'im klal nit kintvisis mokim. So the ways of nature don't have any space. They don't take up any space at all. Was the far darfen nit zuchen asiba v'keli. He doesn't have to look for a cause, a vessel, a vehicle, how to happen. He doesn't have to, because the ways of nature don't mean anything to him. And the riber afil of enes is do asiba v'kleli teva pernososoi. So even when there is a reason and there is a vehicle natural for his parnasa, he doesn't attribute it to that. Is ein parnasa durch dem nicht nenter geworden zu ihm. This didn't make his livelihood any closer to him. Legabe wer wollt nicht gehabt as keli. Whether if he didn't have the reason and the keli, it's not the keli and the reason don't. Not considered anything. That's not. It's the Eibishter that gives them. So even when there is, they don't have really any credence or any independent, any space of importance. Because the cause and the vessel and the vehicle is not does not take up any space by him. It doesn't als Sach for sich as an independent item. Zet nor wer bekommt als gleich von Eibishter. He says he gets everything from, he sees everything comes immediately from Hashem. Is euch die Sibbe v'kele azach. So also the reason and the kele is something was the Eibishter macht for him. So that mit seinem Parnasse, the Eibishter gives it to him together with his livelihood. It's not that there is a livelihood and he gets it because he uses the parnasse. The whole, everything that is here, the cause and the kezli, that's the Eibishter making for him together with the results together with his livelihood. This explains the conduct of Rabbi Yisrael. He said, we're not going to make a meal till we'll get it from the king. He had the food for that day. But Rabbi Yisrael is given the reifim betochen because by him, by the elder Rabbi Yisrael, the way of his trust, as he saw every action independently, whatever he did, as does his needs seine anasiya. He didn't see it as his, nor anisina me Hashem. He said Hashem gave it to him. Whatever, whether it's the parnosa, whether it's the way to, whether the food, everything is from Hashem. Even when he has the food already in his home. All what he has to do is take it and prepare it. Filter, he still feels as though it's nicht sein Eichel, that's not his food. Was nimmt mishloi, that he's taking that he already owns. He's just preparing it. Not as it has to be given from the king. Because the fact that he's getting it now and whatever, that's still giving from the king. Does Gittim is the Eibishter. The Eibishter is giving it to him now. It's not that the Eibishter gave him before and he's taking something the Eibishter gave him before. The Eibishter is giving it now, presently. So therefore, it's getting it now. So he has to ask for the Eibishter for the food. Just like he asks for his food when he doesn't have yet the food in the house, he has to ask Hashem. So even though the food was in his house, he felt that this has been given to him, not that it's his from before. And you have to ask for it because everything is Hashem. Every act to go prepare the food means that Hashem is giving it to him right now, not using that what he has before. Dermit kemen euch verantworten noch an Inyan in Hanogas Yisrael. This would also answer another idea in the conduct of Rabbi Yisrael. how he did it also on Shabbos, that he prayed for his food. On Shabbos, you're not allowed to pray for food. But here, we're saying this is not a regular prayer. This is on a higher level. If the fact that the Zohar keeps it closed, doesn't articulate, say anything specific, lo yistakin sudasa b'chol yomet, it says he never prepared a meal at the boibus until he said his prayer, which means also Shabbos, chol yomet, is mashma, it appears, even on Shabbos he did so. Is nicht glatig, so it's not so smooth. Shabbos is doch nicht as man from Bakosh Sracham. Shabbos is not a time to ask your need. Is wie kommt es as Rabbi Yesi? How could this come? He asked his request, that he asked from Hashem for his food. I feel of Shabbos, even on Shabbos. So there's another problem here. But now we understand it wasn't the regular praying for the food. Apian now is das verstanding. Based on the above, it's understood. The Bakoshus Tzrochov was Dafne Zayn Shabbos. When we say that you shouldn't ask for your food on Shabbos, is Dafke wenn der Odom is Oysen thereby Zich. That's only if the person's intention, he means himself. When he means himself, don't ask for your needs yourself. Sein Metzias, his entity. As im's only smaller werden Tzrochov Chisroi Noi, that his needs and his lacking should be. He is the center. It's over him. It's about him. As opposed to Rabbi Sova, he actually prayed specifically was a otherwise, he wouldn't have to pray. He had the food. It was only because his own entity didn't take up any space by him, so he didn't consider that he has anything. Even though it was in his house, it's not his. He felt every step, every movement. As als is abhängig von Ebersten. Everything comes from Hashem. Mit der Zohar is dort virus. The Zohar explains there, if as Azan Hoge state that with such a kind of conduct, it says, Es hamiyachalim lechazde, those who look forward, they anticipate his kindness. The mitzapenu mechakon b'chol yoyma v'yoyma limiboyim mizenosayim kundus shubrichu. That they look forward and they wait, they anticipate every day and day to ask their food, to get their food from Hashem. Just haste, as the teichen atfilo is below to oizdrik, and that means what is he praying? The mamyachlin lechazdei, that they all look out, they say this is Hashem's kindness. They don't. This is a new kindness that Eibishter is giving him now food, because they feel him the outs is nor chazish kodesh baruch hu. It's not chisroi no, it's not you're lacking. Fakert, you don't need anything. You everything the Eibishter, whatever the Eibishter gives you, is the Eibishter giving you now. You don't own anything beforehand. It's v'yachlim lechaz doi from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not chisroi noi, the person's chisroi. No chazish kodesh baruch hu. Unaza oifen in tefillah. That you can have even on Shabbos. So Rabbi explained that Rabbi Yossi was on a very high madrega. This wasn't just a regular madrega, and such a davening is allowed. And now the Rebbe is going to circle back to answer what he started off asking about the second volume in second edition of the Shulchan Aruch and how it talks about the midas habitochen, and to say to you that the Madura Tinyana talks about the higher level of midas habitochen, and there would be no problem saying it in the Shabbos, and there would be no problem using it in the davening because that's on a higher level. Let's look inside. Zion. This conduct of Rabbi Yossi Sova, have the food at home and still pray Hashem, give me the food, is not something which is equal for everybody. But yet is Efes Kotzeyu something of the corner, L'chol Nefesh, Efes Efes Meneu, and somewhat of it, Shaykh Tziyad Nemenim applies to everyone. Minimally at certain times everybody can get a little bit of that level or Rabbi Yesi Sobo. Yesh Leimar, we can say this is the chiluk between Meisach Chodesh and Yom HaShabbos. The difference between the weekday and Yom HaShabbos. When a person can reach a higher level in his trust of Hashem. During the duration of the 6 days of the week, then Ayid is kifi when a Yid is according and in the way that it explains Shulchan Aruch. Yelech lasokov, he goes to his business. Vitim b'muna, and he gives and he deals and he gives those faithfully. Parnuma b'nyana parnosa, he's occupied with matters of his livelihood. He's be'im de betochen in an oifen, so then he trusts Hashem in a way. As he looks for a cause and a vessel. Weil man kennt von ihm nicht monnen, because you can't expect demand from a person as that he should raise himself entirely higher than nature. Und halten bei dem Hecher mefanalen betochen, and that he should be at the level of the higher level of trusting of Hashem. But when it comes to the day of Shabbos, which is not a day that you work, a day of action, of act. When Eid is Hecher from Loch, when Eid is higher than work, you should have at least somewhat from the Hecher and Eifen and betochen. He has to have the higher level of betochen. They look forward just for the Eibishter's kindness. That's the style. That's the avodah. So based on this, we can say Ados is the hasbora from the Mechilik between the Madura Kama Madura Tinyana. This is also the explanation between the first edition and the second edition from Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch Benegeya, from the Alter Rebbe Benegeya, Lamidas Parshas Amon, about saying the Mon. The Madura Kama that Alter Rebbe Yishriben Loider Achra from Gemara. First edition that Alter Rebbe wrote based on the decision of the Gemara and the codifiers. Since the idea of trust, the way it is, simply the revealed way, is in an oifenam and muzmachan akel, is in a way that you have to make a vessel. Is oifmenzel brengen als tam lamidas parsamon. If you say a reason for saying the mon, liftoyach b'Hashem, so that you trust Hashem, voltamirosu given nor be meisachol, then you would only say tak in the weekday, undavke lachanat filah, specifically after the davening, kinal siv gimel. So, if you have to trust Hashem, so in the Pashita way, Pashita way means you have to make a kedah. So then it would be another. The Farzok the Alter Rebbe Madur Kama Shaloi. That's what he says in the first edition as their tam for the Amiris Parsabon B'Chol Yom is Kidei Shiyamin Shekolum Zanesa Boin LeBashgacha. He has to believe that all of his food comes to him by divine providence. So, therefore, on the simple level of betochen, the person has to work and find it, and trust that. So, the Rebbe doesn't bring down the higher level. It just brings down believing in Hashem. But when we come to the second edition, the Alter Rebbe decided like the Mekabolim. That's the style in this second edition. So therefore, this also includes such conduct which are tied to higher levels in the service of Hashem. And the far zokter dem tam, that's why he says the reason. To trust Hashem, who gives the dvarayim b'yem. But mitzad, them hecher and oifenim b'tochen am yachlim l'chazde, because this higher level of yachlim chazde can zayin amidas parshas amon b'chol yom eich b'shabbos l'ifnei atfila, and you can say Shabbat before davening, because in this level, he's not asking for his needs. It's like Sava, and it's not a problem. So in the first edition, which the Alter Rebbe is talking about the regular level, a person has a regular level of betochen. So therefore, the expectation is not from him to be totally. So he looks safe for a reason and a keli, and that's why you say because of Emunah. And because of Emunah, okay, you could say it's not Bakosha Strocha, but the Betochen would be expectation in a Keli, and that would be maybe not before the davening, or maybe it would be not on Shabbos and Yom Tov, but so that's why he brings the reason of Emunah. And then you say it in Shabbat in the morning, but in the second edition, he can say it because it's on a higher level of bitochen. That level of bitochen, the higher level of bitochen, is not calling your needs. It's miyachlim lechazdoi. It's Hashem's. It's for Hashem's chazdoi. So that's why you can say Parsha Man Choyim Eich B'Shabbos and Lifnei HaTfilah. This is Mesichas Shabbos Parshas Beshalach Tovshin Chav Gimel and Shabbos Parshas Vorim Tovshin Lamed Dalet.